Hey y'all, Dr. Gordon here. Welcome to Module 7 Sketch Lab. Probably one of the most exciting tutorials in this course, drawing a value scale. Look, I think this is a rite of passage for almost every art student. It's not just torture. It has a purpose, and the students who do this project or this scale and actually use this tool or use this scale as a tool as it's designed to be pick up on value a lot faster than the other students who just kind of do this and like do it to get it over with. There is a lot of, pardon the pun, a lot of value in doing a value scale. All right, I've said it before about the importance of learning to see value. But what you have to do is be able to see value in the object that you're drawing and then see how you can capture that value with whatever pencil or pencils you are using. If you notice the value of an object, like this guy here, you'll remember him. If you notice the value of the object, but you don't know how to depict it, what good is that? So if we look at this from like this angle right here, what you're seeing, as we've already discussed, is multiple different values. Let me hold it here so I can point with this. You have this value down here of the shadow. You have the highlight right there. You have this mid-tone here, another mid-tone here, and another mid-tone over there. And then also you have these other tones as the value is darkest right here and fades out, or gradates. And you know, these very subtle shifts in tone from this value to this to the actual highlight. So see it, identify it, and then locate it with what pencils you have. So what you can do with this is you can take your value scale and literally, like, you'll cut this out and hold this up to the object and look at it. You know, where's this at? Well, right now, this highlight would be the white of the paper. So that's what you have to treat that as. This is the white of the paper. This down here, where does that lie in the value scale? Sorry, I got to pull this down so I can see it. You know, you can tell right here, since this casts a shadow on that, that's too light. You have to look all the way down and go, well, it's not solid black, but where does that shadow lie on the value scale? And you got to find it. So you can say, all right, it's right here. All right, I used, this would have been 10, 9, 7, 6. I used a 3B pencil to get that value. That shadow is a 3B pencil. You see what I'm saying? Like, it takes a lot of the trying to just figure it all out of the equation, and it lets you pinpoint it. So first you got to do it though. All right, and that's what we're going to start here. I did this other one. It looks kind of junky through the lens, and I've noticed that through doing these tutorials over the years that sometimes what we're seeing in front of us looks a lot different on a photograph or a film, sometimes to our advantage. Have y'all ever noticed that you take a picture of your artwork and it looks better on the photograph than it does in person, or it looks worse? But y'all notice I've gone outside of the lines here. That's okay, because you can just take your eraser and very carefully erase back and clean it up that way. I wanted to show y'all that so you didn't get in and I went too far. All right, I'm not going to do any more of that right now. I didn't want y'all to be under the impression that I was trying to stay in the lines this whole time. All right, so I have this one, but also I would just cut this out. So I wouldn't even bother trying to clean it up. I have the line here again. I would take my ruler when I'm done, and then this one, well, that was just for this anyway, so I'm not going to be using that one. All right, so what I'm going to do is I have my Hi-Uni set, the Mitsubishi Hi-Uni set, the big one, this one. So I have a full range here. Now you can use whatever you got. So if you only have 6 pencils, do what you can with 6 pencils. This set has got 22 pencils. So I'm not using all 22 because it's just a 14-step value scale, which is a little more than what most people do. A lot of people do a 10 or a 12. But I want y'all to really be able to capture some more subtle values than just 10 or 12. The main thing you want is for each step to be noticeable. A noticeable step from one value to the next. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start out over here, and I'm going to be adjusting this light so that I can see. And I'm sorry if that looks like crap on here, but if I can't see, then that doesn't do any of us good. You got to get your light squared away, especially when doing work with graphite. Because if you're not careful, the graphite, you either can't see it or it's just shiny. And notice I got the long ugly point on my pencils right now. Well, on most of them. Some of them I just have the regular long point. That's from my sharpener. I use a Kuhn long point sharpener. It's on the assignment list. It's my favorite because when it comes to sharpeners, if you don't do this ugly sharp with your utility knife, that Kuhn long point sharpener, man, that thing is awesome. It just gives you such a sharp point. It takes some figuring out on like getting it down, but, and y'all, look, used to, that right there would have driven me nuts. This little kind of darker streak in there, I let it go. You know what I mean? Like it's not really worth it to sit here and try and fuss over it or smooth it out and make it go away. It's just a natural part of creating tone with graphite. I mean, I don't love it. I don't welcome it. I'm just not going to get really upset about it. And have you ever noticed how sometimes when you go in and try and start fixing something, you just make it worse? So I'm not going to do that either. All right, that's my 10H. And y'all, the long ugly point is very helpful in this exercise because it allows for more part of the pencil to make contact with the paper. You'll see what I mean when you start doing this, that sometimes if you have a normal sharp like this one, that this part of the pencil right here will hit the paper and you won't get a good tone. And so in order to actually get tone, you have to tilt the pencil. Let's pretend this is the paper. You have to tilt the pencil like here. And that's a steep angle on your pencil to create that tone versus this, where you can really lay the pencil kind of flat and get a lot more surface area on the paper. You'll see when you start doing this. All right, so that was my 10H. And next, I want to get those out of order. I'm going with a 9H. And y'all, you got to be careful doing this stuff. Don't go too hard, because if you're scratching the pencil across the paper, it's making a mark. Even like right now where you can't quite see it, I'm still taking my time. And I'm going to slowly build up that tone over several passes. I'm not trying to do it all in one pass. And what we also don't want is to see it dark right here and a different color tone. You can see I kind of did that in some of these, like right here it's a little darker, right there. You know, we're trying to establish that new value, and then we got to carry it across the whole square. Now some of y'all, you might want to go from dark to light. It's up to you. Do whatever you want. I've tried both. So some of the common mistakes students will make is that too many value squares look the same. And so there's really no tonal difference across 4 or 5 squares. And that doesn't really help you as a tool. That'd be like opening up a toolbox drawer full of screwdrivers and they're all the same size. Like, well, that's great. But if you have a drawer with 10 different screwdrivers, shouldn't you want a little variety in there? And so right now what we want is variety. We want to distinguish one square from the next. All right, so you can see a little difference between this and this. Let's get the lighting on here a little bit better. Somewhere in there. Well, that makes it look lighter than that. There you go. You can see it's a little bit darker from here to there. Maybe I can try and leave it there, y'all. I'll try and leave it there. It just creates a glare on my end. But that's what it actually looks like. I'll try it. So I used a 10H, a 9H, and now I'm going with a 7H. Another common mistake students make is they leave a white spot between each value range. So you want to make sure to bring your value all the way across your swath. So what I do, y'all, I gotta move this, I'm sorry. There we go. Is I start here and I just make sure that that's different. And then I do my best to bring that tone across the whole square. And again, you gotta be patient and know that you're gonna do it in multiple different passes. This is also really good practice for learning to tone and to like good mechanics, to practice with your pencil and practice laying down tone. All right, so I'm gonna adjust this. Well, y'all can kind of see that. There we go, a little bit darker. That's what we're going for. Subtle changes. And you know, the thing is that if you need to make adjustments, you can. But what you don't want to do is go too hard, too fast, because then you'll be here and you won't have anywhere to go. All right, so that was my 7H, and now I'm going to do my 6H. All right. You also don't need to use your blending stumps to do this. I would suggest just let the pencil be pencil. Let it be what it is. I really just, here I go again, y'all. I don't understand this need to airbrush everything we do. Like, and y'all, it might, well, I don't know what it looks like. I don't know if it looks like I'm pressing down hard or not, but I'm not. I have a firm grip, but I'm not pressing down hard. I'm just keeping that really even. All right. And then what I do is I kind of blur my eyes just a little bit to see if there's any inconsistencies. So let's see. There we go. All right, you can see enough of a jump from there to there. That's what we want to see, little jumps at a time. All right, that's my 6H. Now I'm going to use my 3H. Remember when I talked about this paper being big and cumbersome when I'm trying to, this is it, like I'm all over the place. So now remember we talked about your H pencils is the graphite is mixed with clay. So the H pencils, they feel scratchier and harder because there's the higher clay in the graphite. There's a higher clay to graphite ratio. So as you start doing your scale, you'll notice not only a tonal change in the pencils, meaning you'll notice a difference in the darkness, you'll start to feel that lead soften up. And so you got to be careful, because when that lead is soft, that's when you go past the point of no return a little too quick. All right. Let me show that to y'all. You know, graphite, I've mentioned this before when I've used Micron on videos. Graphite, I love it. I love it. But it photographs terribly, and it doesn't really always look good on camera. I had done these drawings in graduate school, and this is my 2H. That was 3H, this is 2H. Did these drawings, and y'all, they were these big graphite drawings. They were 3 feet wide by 8 feet tall. And they had graphite and charcoal and like ink and Micron. They had all sorts of stuff in them. And then I did these smaller graphite drawings. I had to pay a photographer to take pictures of them. And y'all, I don't want that to sound like I had like, that was nice. You could afford to pay someone to photograph your work. This guy would come around and he would photograph artwork for students, because it was kind of like his, not his ministry, but in a way like that. Like he did it because he just wanted to help out, and he charged, I think, like $150, which is nothing when it comes to someone coming out, and he photographed the work. He edited all the photographs on Photoshop. Like, he did such an awesome job. But that was the point. Or how do I say it? Like, that's what graphite drawings did to me. They drove me to hiring a photographer to take pictures of them, because I just couldn't do it. and had a really nice camera at the time. And I couldn't do it. They all looked washed out. And friends of mine who saw the drawings in person, saw the photographs, and like, yeah, that does not do your work justice. And that photographer told me, he goes, these were some of the hardest drawings I've had to photograph. He's like, paintings are so easy, and that's why he charged so little, because he could come in and help some of the seniors and photograph their work for a reasonable price, and it was pretty easy to just get them in the right lighting condition, usually in the art gallery, and then adjust it to where the colors look like they look, and you're done. But those, he said he actually had to come back to the gallery and photograph them multiple times to try and just change his camera settings to figure out how to get that graphite to show up. Because in one light, the graphite would just look shiny and reflective. All right. So you can see a jump here from the 3H to the 2H, and that's because we went from 6 to 3 to 2. So that big jump from 6 to 3 kind of started this, but we are getting close to an all graphite pencil, and so that's why it has that darker look to it. And that's what happens when you get further down the H's. This is a pure H, but so when you get into these, you got to be very careful to not draw too hard, because we still have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and well, this one and 7 more squares to go, so we need room. Now you'll notice that some of these squares on the bottom scale are going to look different than these, because I'm switching up which ones I used. I'm adjusting. This I thought changed a little too fast, because I went from the 2H to an HB, and I felt like I needed to push a little further and find some different values in there. So that's why this bottom scale is going to look a little bit different. And notice I'm not going in here and like drawing a hard line. Now you'll see it in that one, but that's okay. I'm just not outlining it. All right, so now what I'm doing is I'm kind of blurring my eyes, and I have this tone and that tone, and I'm going to bring them together. So this one doesn't have the ugly sharp on it, and you have to tilt it up a little bit more, meaning you get a different tone. Y'all, okay, let me put it this way. A friend of mine, he plays classical guitar, and he uses his fingernails, as most classical guitarists do, to pluck the strings. You don't use a pick. And any of y'all play guitar, when you use a pick, it changes. You can buy pick, it changes the tone of the guitar, and you can buy picks in different softnesses or hardnesses. And I'm gonna go this way real quick just to get there. And so what you notice over time is that what you're using to pluck the strings changes the sound of the tone. And what we can learn from that, now that looks on here a lot darker or more intense than it is. But what we can learn from that is that different things create different tones. It's the exact same instrument, yet it's a different sound coming out of it. Here's the B. All right, so that was my H, and now this is the B. Some of y'all may have a HB, and that could also be a good middle ground pencil. All right, so taking that same illustration with the guitar, you have the same pencil, yet how you are holding it, the angle, the type of lead, the sharpness of the lead, all these things create a different tone coming from the exact same pencil. And so that's something to think about as you're doing this, is what does your pencil, like how is it sharpened? Because when you have to steepen that angle, you're going to get a different tone out of the pencil. You're going to get a different line quality coming out of it, all right? And I know some of this to y'all might sound super like pedantic. Like, is it really that big? Yeah, and I say it really is that big of a deal. Because what ends up happening is, I don't care who you are, you start to notice these subtleties in anything you do that you do a lot of. And so some of y'all like that play video games, you know what an Xbox game feels like compared to a PlayStation game, compared to a Switch game. Whereas someone who doesn't play video games at all might go, well, aren't they all the same? And any of y'all who have owned a Switch and asked for an Xbox at some point, your mom or your grandma went, well, don't you already have one of those things? And you're like, yeah, but it's different. Y'all know exactly what I'm talking about. And that's like this. Like, isn't it just tone? Isn't it just a pencil? Like, yeah, it is in a way, but it's not. There's a lot more to it. A lot more to it. Let's see. All right. So that was my B. Now I'm going 2B. I don't have the ugly sharp on all of my pencils. I have it on some, and some I don't use as much as others, and some I was doing something different with. So, you know, you don't always need it, but again, you can take your utility knife and do this over a trash can, or over a sheet of paper or something. Don't just do it on your floor, because you get pencil shavings and graphite dust everywhere. Do not do it over carpet, y'all. I can tell you that. And if you go outside and do it, let me just tell you, pencil shavings, they stay around a long time. I went out in the yard one time at our old house and sharpened a bunch of my pencils, and I swear I was finding those pencil shavings for years after that. So y'all can see how subtle the shifts are in the H pencils, like in here. So we're going to get some of that same subtlety in the B pencils. And you're just going to have a jump at some point, kind of like from there to there, or, you know, this will look completely different than that. And that's just part of it. Again, if I were to do a 22 value scale, it'd be different. Here's one that comes with the pencil set, and you can see where they do each one of them. So then you get a really nice gradation from one to the other. But all right, that's my 2B. This is my 3B. I think part of art school and just everything in general is like, you have sometimes where we take things way too seriously. And I'm guilty of that today, and I was guilty of that when I was an art student. And then we have things that we don't take seriously enough. I'm guilty of that now, and was guilty of that as an art student. And the thing now is, like, I look back on some of the things that I took too seriously, and I reflect, like, was it too serious, or was I just doing what needed to be done back then? And then I do the same thing, like, man, if I would have taken that more seriously and like given that more time and energy, I could have probably progressed a lot faster. And I'll use this, the music instrument illustration again, that I had a friend of mine, we both played guitar, and I was really diligent when I was younger, and I loved playing like heavy metal solos and all this stuff. I was highly motivated, and then I played all throughout like my elementary school and high school, and then at some point in college I just got more focused on my art, and he kept on playing guitar, and I noticed in those years he just surpassed like my level, and we were both kind of even, because what was the difference? He kept practicing. So right, here's that one, that's the 3B. He kept practicing, and I became more of a casual player. That's fine, nothing wrong with that. I didn't want to be a professional guitar player, but it showed me that when you treat things casually, you kind of stay at a casual level. And if you treat things, if maybe you give them more priority in your life, then that's the kind of results you see. So sports are the same way. Those of y'all that play sports or any sort of gym activity, any of y'all hunt or fish, you're not going to catch any fish sitting on the couch. And sometimes you go and you don't catch anything. But if you go every single day, I mean, that's extreme, but if you go often and you really research what kind of water you're fishing in, what kind of fish are in that lake, and, the right bait for the right fish, the right time of day, the right lake conditions, all the things that may seem like, well, that's way too much that I need to focus on. But if you learn all these things, then you get better. All right, so that's our 6B. Put that over there. I'm going to jump up to my 9B. So I say all that in just hopes that, I can identify with some of y'all that maybe have done this throughout high school, and just let you know that you can't take technique too seriously. Like, it's one thing when we take ourselves too seriously, and our egos are overblown, and as artists we kind of naturally go to that, so we got to be careful. Become overly sensitive, can't take any feedback. That's one thing. That's taking ourselves too seriously. But when it comes to your techniques, practicing, searching for good ideas, better subject matter, better compositions, research that stuff as much as you can. Like, there is a time in art, like in everything, where you just need to have fun and relax. But there's also, okay, that was 9B, this is 10B. There's also definitely a time where you gotta, as I heard you gotta get serious. Like, quit playing around, man. This ain't no game. And especially if you want to go into a field, an art field for your career, this definitely is no game. And learn all you can right now. And take this, even something like this. This is not just a throwaway exercise. Like, you are learning and you are pushing yourself. And in that process, you're also learning about yourself. Learning what you're capable of. You might do this and go, okay, I suck at value. Or shading, and it's all right. You revealed a weakness, and that's a good thing. That's not a negative thing. It might sting at first. Trust me, I know that. It stings. It can, but then it's also a really good thing to know. Like, all right, I need to work on this. So this took 35 minutes so far. Well, the first 5 was me explaining, so it took 30 minutes. You know, you might have to do another one. You might have to do 2 like I did to practice. That's fine. Whatever it takes, right? So, carefully, y'all. Don't be a moron like me. You come in and erase back. Erase back. Or just cut it out. So, however you want to treat that, I'll leave that up to you. The little Tombow eraser, it works for these, the H squares, but for down here, let's see. Some of those heavier B squares, you know, it doesn't do the best job erasing, but do your best. But let's see how this looks. Does that look all right? All right, we got nice subtle shifts from one like square to the next. I don't know if the light is on it just right or not. We'll get it one day. One day I'll figure this out. There we go. We get subtle shifts from one swatch to the next. One more thing, when you cut this out and you have a still life like the one I had over there the other day with the light and the outlet and the plug, what you can also do is you can take a picture of your still life on your phone, put it in black and white, and then you can use this value scale and kind of hold it up to your phone and determine some of the values. Not with every single object, but you can say, you can hold up some of the darker, you can identify some of the darker values and the lighter and hold those up. So now you've created a range. All right, I know this is the darkest thing I can see, and obviously that's going to be my highlight, but this is some of the other mid-tone, so I need to stay in this range and then go to your value scale and go, all right, that was a 10, 9, 8, 6, 3, that's a 2H, and I'm going to use that for this. And you see what I'm saying? You can be a little more methodical about this. So I used a 10H, 9H, 7H, 6H, 3H, 2H, H, a B, 2B, 3B, 6B, 9B, 10B. All right, so take your own set and just kind of figure it out what you need to do. But I look forward to seeing y'all's value scales.